Across all faiths, angels are recognized as divine beings that are created by God to serve him in a manner of different ways. Many of us today see these angels as spiritual beings, those that are thought to be messengers of God, or to serve some specific cause, such as Michael, who is the warrior angel. The archangels, meaning chief angel in Greek, are thought to be in charge of all other angels, those that sit closest to God and form the top of the angelic hierarchy. Whilst the function of each archangel is debated, it is agreed that they all have a unanimous task, and that is to serve the Lord and bring about his plan, though each archangel is thought to be better suited to one task or another. For example, Archangel Michael, the warrior angel himself, would naturally be more inclined to battle, as we see him face off against Lucifer in the Book of Revelations. Meanwhile, Archangel Gabriel, on the other hand, who is the messenger angel, is better suited to bringing about prophecy, as we see him tell the Virgin Mary of her conception of God's child. Whilst archangels like Michael and Gabriel are easy to understand, because the Bible gives us this information, it does not deliver much in the way of the other archangels, such as Archangel Metatron. As you might have guessed, Metatron does not show up in the Bible, and whilst there is some speculation that he may represent some of the unnamed angelic figures in the Holy Book, such as when Jacob wrestles a mysterious angel in Genesis and Hosea, none of this can be confirmed. Furthermore, you might have also noticed the uniqueness of Metatron's name. Firstly, yes, he sounds like a transformer, but secondly, he's the only archangel we've encountered whose name does not have the suffix El. The origins of the name Metatron are shrouded in mystery. Some scholars believe that the name had originated from an ancient Jewish text, and that the name itself was something of a magic word, or a word that resonated with the heavens, or the people of the time. Other scholars conclude that Metatron comes from the early Hebraic word Matara, meaning keeper of the watch, or Memeta, meaning to guard and protect. Other scholars look to more Greek origins, believing that Metatron is made up of two words, the word meta and the word thronus. Together, it would mean something along the lines of the one who serves behind the throne, or the one who occupies the space next to the throne. However, this is often dismissed, given that Metatron's name is never separated in the text that he does appear in. The Latin word metator, meaning leader, also has been put forth as a possible means to explain the name Metatron. Interestingly, there existed a similar sounding word in mitator, a word for an officer in the Roman army, who served as a leader. By this, it has been suggested that Metatron was spawned of this word, and that it was Metatron who would come to be seen as an angel who led the Israelites through the wilderness, in a similar way that the mitator would lead the Roman army. Of course, these are all stretches without much in the way of credible evidence. In truth, there are many theories regarding the name of Metatron, but as far as I can tell, no one really has a definitive idea as to where it originated from. But who exactly is Metatron, I hear you ask? Well, Metatron appears in the Talmud, as well as in the non-canonical biblical book known as Enoch. He is also a figure within apocryphal Christian mythology, and as a result is either discounted by many believers as a fictional character, or is outright unheard of by many of the faith. We also see mentions of Metatron in the Kabbalah, and a series of exegesis by various rabbis. We also see Metatron take form in some Islamic beliefs, where he goes by the Arabic name Metatrush. We also understand from a folkloric sense in angelology that Metatron serves God as the celestial scribe, an angel who records the word of God and the events upon the earth, including the deed of every man and woman. One of the main texts where we see Metatron mentioned comes from the third book of Enoch, usually entitled 3 Enoch. As you may know from previous videos, the first book of Enoch describes the fall of the angelic beings known as the Watchers, and how God imprisons these treacherous angels. The rest of the book sees Enoch experience dreams and visions of heaven and the future itself. By the second book, we see him treated by the archangels to a tour of heaven, where he gets to experience each layer to its fullest, before making a full account of what he has seen. He is also given instructions by God to write down what he tells him, and that he should pass on this information to all who will listen when he is returned to Earth. When Enoch is brought back to Earth, he only remains for 30 days before God praises his hard work of spreading his word and brings him up to heaven full time. It is here in 3 Enoch that we see what happens to Enoch after he has ascended, and how Metatron first comes about. Whilst the authorship of the book has been disputed, it has been credited to Rabbi Ishmael, who notes himself as becoming a high priest after having visions of heaven. Whilst there was a Rabbi Ishmael in the 1st and 2nd century, it's understood he was never a high priest. Furthermore, 3 Enoch is written differently from the other Enochian books, in that its layout is unique, and that it proposes some fresh ideas that weren't necessarily congruent with the ideas of the previous books. However, there is some continuity, suggesting that the author, whoever it was, had some idea of what the previous books were about, or had probably read them, thus where his inspiration came from. We learn in the 1st chapter that this Rabbi Ishmael ascends to heaven and is met by the Archangel Metatron, he who is referred to as the Prince of Presence. Metatron leads Ishmael through to a great hall, where awaiting him are the Seraphim and the Princes of the Macabre. The Seraphim, as we've spoken about before, were thought to be high-ranking angels that stood beside God's throne, angels who were often related to fire, in that they themselves were burning, or had some divine ability to cast flame. In any case, these entities do not like the look of Ishmael, and they proceed to pounce on him before beating him up. But it is God himself who diffuses these angelic beings in their attack, and commands them to stand down. After this, Ishmael appears to be welcomed in the presence of God, and furthermore guided by the Archangel Metatron. The other angels begin to quiz Metatron, asking him what makes Ishmael worthy to stand here amongst them. But Metatron answers all of their questions with an easy calmness, and seems to be able to pacify the other angels. Interestingly, Ishmael picks up on the fact that the other angels refer to him as youth. When he asks Metatron what his name is, Metatron explains that he goes by 70 names, but that indeed, God and the others refer to him as youth. But Ishmael perceives Metatron to be the greatest of angels, and he who is higher amongst all others, so he cannot fathom why he is called something as lowly as youth. But here Metatron drops the bombshell that the reason he is called youth is because he is the youngest angel, for he is in actuality the man formerly known as Enoch. Metatron reveals that when the flood occurred, he was brought up by God and saved from suffering the destruction of the earth, so that none could say that God was not merciful. So as to show how much God appreciated Enoch, he blessed him, and transformed him into a being that would govern the other angels, perhaps the first and only archangel who had been born human. But as you might imagine, the transition from man to the ruler of angels did not come about without resistance. We are told that the angels Uzzah, Azza, and Azael rebelled against this decision, declaring to God that he was a fool for making a man into an angel, and that they would not serve under one who was not born of them. But God reprimands them immediately and stamps out their dissent, saying that he valued Enoch more than he did all of the other angels, and that they will bow to him, whether they like it or not. Evidently, the 3 angels do not have the same gall as Lucifer, for they submit to Enoch and do not plan to rebel. We learn that Enoch was given God's blessing and that his entire body was morphed, every part of him enlarged. He subsequently grew a set of 72 wings. He gave Enoch splendor, beauty, radiance, and even offered Enoch a throne of his own, whereby he would be known as God's representative. It is understood that every angel who wishes to speak to God must go through Metatron first, and that every command uttered by Metatron must be fulfilled by all other angels. It just goes to show how much God in this story trusts Enoch, that he gives him this sort of power. Note, this is a level of power that not even Lucifer was granted when he was an angel. We also learn that Metatron and Metatron alone is privy to many of God's secrets, furthermore showing us how much God trusts him and how valued he is as an angel. In fact, we also learn that God even nicknames him the Lesser Yahweh after himself, and goes as far as to put a crown on his head, almost like he is prepping him for a takeover or something. We also learn that the crown bestowed upon Metatron is so glorious that every angel he comes across, including the likes of Archangel Gabriel, prostrate before him without hesitation. The rest of 3 Enoch sees Metatron escorting Rabbi Ishmael on a journey through the heavens, where Ishmael experiences the wonders of both the spiritual world and the physical world. He learns about the other angels, the battles the angels have, and learns of the world of the demons. He is taught the way in which the heavens operate, the nature of order, and incurs a wealth of knowledge about God and God's plan. In the Talmud, meanwhile, we see Metatron mentioned only a couple of times. Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya is thought to have seen Metatron seated in the presence of God, something that is incongruent with the worship of God. It is believed that all subjects before God would fall to their knees before him, as is the case in the rabbi's vision, but Metatron is the only entity present who appeared to have been seated. It is understood that the reason why Metatron is allowed to sit is because, as mentioned earlier, Metatron is the heavenly scribe, and therefore granted the privilege of a seat by God so that he might be comfortable in such a difficult task, in recording everything that transpires. Interestingly, Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya also witnesses Metatron receive 60 strokes with fiery rods, and believed that this was done to delineate the difference of power between himself and God. It coincides with the story of 3 Enoch, in that whilst Metatron was considered to be the lesser Yahweh and was held in such high regard that all other angels bowed to him, he was still utterly powerless against God. It shows that Metatron might have been a favourite of God, but he was not above being punished should he step out of line. It also gave way to the notion that angels were not exempt from God's wrath, and served as a caution to anyone else that if God was willing to whip his favourite Metatron 60 times with a fiery rod, imagine what he might do to someone who had irked him. Another belief within the Talmud is that when God is busy with his routines, or that his attention is elsewhere, Metatron might be called upon to sit in his stead, and be given the command of God for a short time. Meanwhile, in Islam, Metatron, or Metatrush, doesn't appear directly in the Quran, but is considered by some communities to be amongst the canonical archangels. Some scholars consider Metatrush to be the angel of the veil, and that it is only he who knows what lies beyond. Metatrush is also mentioned by 13th century Sufi writer Ahmed al-Buni, who described Metatron in a similar way to how Rabbi Ishmael describes him in 3 Enoch, but also attributes him to wielding a lance. In other Sufi beliefs, Metatron is considered to be the angel who is invoked to fight the evil spirits known as the Jinn, as well as demons, dark arts, and other supernatural happenings. Whilst Metatron is not at the forefront of people's mind when they think of archangels, there is a belief amongst some that the angel is very much real, and that he serves humanity in a variety of different ways. Those who claim to have seen or experienced the power of Metatron state that they see bright flashes of light when he is near, that which could be the shine of his glorious crown. Others believe that he manifests in a crystallized form, that which is magenta in colour, or that he may present a brilliantly lit cube of deep pinks, greens and whites. The cube itself in some beliefs is known as Metatron's cube, and it is this cube that he uses to heal people. Another common sign of the Archangel is the string of positive thoughts that one may suddenly receive during a state of depression. This is thought to be Metatron trying to promote wellness in the mind. The state of one's mind is thought to concern Metatron greatly, for he must record the deeds of men, and would therefore like men to act from a place of happiness, rather than a place of suffering. The frequent observation of geometric patterns are also thought to be a sign of Metatron's presence in one's life, and that this likely links back to his cube. Others associate a heightened state of awareness to Metatron, in that one must be elevated above regular consciousness in order to truly behold him. One final idea is that Metatron is linked to numbers, and that if one is prone to seeing numbers like 1111, perhaps on the clock, it is a sign that Metatron is present, and condoning the choices one has made. But let me know what you think about the Archangel Metatron below, and whether you've had your own experiences with this elusive angel. As always guys, if you've enjoyed today's video, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Until the next time.